Yes, I'm totally going to wear this tie even when I'm not wearing a collared shirt. It's called the theme, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it works. Okay, so let's get to my little behind the act of kindness. My low is that I actually feel kind of bad for my mom because last night she wanted to do something specifically for me, and a lot of things didn't really go that well for it. Because she wanted me to get me something. It was basically she wanted me to get a kind of like a shelf at the Lowe's, and she found a really nice one that was like pretty decently sized for like $80. But it's like one of those displays that they have. It's one of those items they have like in the back, in which like there's only like maybe one of it there, and if anyone takes it, like that's it. So we didn't get it. On top of that, I kind of was acting a little bit ungrateful regarding, because, listen, I love my mom, but she really does have a bad habit of helping me when I don't necessarily need it. And she does so in a way where no one could ever see it coming. Yeah. It's like I always say, you can make something foolproof, but you can't make something mom-proof. I can assure you. But I still had a nice time with my family. And we got to take my nephews to a Sorges last night. They had a lot of fun. Although, here's the thing. Whenever we take them to Sorges, like my parents will get the pasta buffet. I usually get my Delmonico, but they'll get the pasta buffet and give the boys some pasta. But they'll also order like chicken fingers and French fries, because what kid doesn't like chicken fingers and French fries? Incidentally, both my nephews had more of like the Italian food and the pasta than the chicken fingers and French fries. So, if that's a sign of things to come, I am very excited for it. And obviously my act of kindness was yesterday while we were at dinner, I helped my mom and dad take care of my nephews because, you know, they're my brother's kids. And I love my brother, and, you know, I love my nephews, and, you know, I have to take responsibility for, you know, keeping an eye on them. And I did. And they were, honestly, their behavior really wasn't bad until like the very end, where one of them was kind of running around a lot. But at that point, we were done eating dinner. We were about to head out. You know, if it was me and my brother back in the day, my father never would have stood for that. But I like to think I'm a little more lenient than my brother and my father. Which is odd, because I actually consider myself it's odd. I consider myself more lenient than my father and my brother. And my mother, for that matter. But at the same time, I don't think I am. I will admit that. It's a little bit of the depression thing. I am a little hard on myself. I'll admit that. But at least I'm able to admit it. So, I alluded to something very important yesterday, didn't I? Well, might as well keep the train going. Actually, hold on. Yeah, let me loosen the tie a little bit. There we go. So yesterday I talked about quite possibly, well, I started the Mom Food Chronicles Bobo edition yesterday, and I started off with not only arguably the simplest mom food that my grandfather made, but easily the one I've had the most. And it actually makes for relatively great juxtaposition, because now, okay, I barely have any idea what juxtaposition means. Basically, I'm talking about the mom food that my grandfather made that I've had the least. Like, hands down the least. Like, maybe 2-3 times. All of which were back when he was alive. And the last time I had this was like 2017. I say this because, for those of you who aren't avid watchers, this is a recipe that my grandfather made that I alluded to a while back, in which I was able to describe what it is. I was able to describe how to make it. The problem was, I had no idea what it was called. So I try to ask a bunch of you to, help me name it. So a couple months ago, we got into contact with a very special friend of the family who knew my grandfather very, very well. And it turns out she actually had this very recipe. And funny story, this recipe doesn't really have a definitive name. Honestly, this is one of those recipes that my grandfather came up with completely, for the most part, on the fly. I'm not going to say by accident, though. Although, there is a mom food that my grandfather did make that I will be getting into at some point, that my grandfather did make on the fly, completely by accident. And it's been the family staple ever since. But we'll get to that when we get to it. For now, let's talk about what used to be called the dish with no name. Because, since there is no name, I'm free to be creative with it. I feel it's fair. So, what does the dish entail exactly? Well, foremost, it's a pasta dish. Definitely a lot of Italian influences with several of the ingredients used. Specifically, Parmesan cheese and, believe it or not, prosciutto. Yes, the thinly sliced ham that you see on very fancy charcuterie boards or really fancy sandwiches sometimes. Yes, that prosciutto. And, the ham that's so thin, it should be like a stained glass window when, you look through it, And for some added color, produce, and a little bit of nutrition, there's asparagus tips. Not full asparagus tips. Very specific about that. You also had to, if you ever, buy prosciutto in, any grocery store or supermarket or whatever, it comes in, the sort of very oval-looking shape or whatever, and they're, very sliced thin. It comes, its own sheets that you're able to peel it off easy or whatever. Yeah, you actually have to slice it the long way. Not like the short way, the long way. My grandfather was very specific. I've seen him make this dish only once. And I'm trying to tell you the bare bones of everything. But you have to cut the prosciutto, the long way. Get, a lot of slices or whatever. For the most part, you cook the prosciutto for a little bit, I believe. Actually, you cook the prosciutto, you cook the asparagus tips. At the same time, you're boiling your pasta. I do believe, full disclosure, and to all my Italian friends, I am so sorry you're about to hear this. My family stinks when it comes to saving pasta water. For the record, when I make pasta for myself, I always save pasta water. Seriously, I legit keep trying to tell anyone in my family who's cooking, spaghetti or something, for the love of God, save the pasta water. They never do. So, I'm sure that was probably nails on a chalkboard to... What I said was probably nails on a chalkboard to any and all my Italian watchers. So, if that offended you, my apologies. I should also probably mention, this is a cream-based sauce. Or a creamy sort of white sauce. Not an Alfredo. This is not an Alfredo. By any means. I mean, I do believe, actually, just keep in mind, I'm not entirely an expert when it comes to how to cook Italian food, outside of the fact that I know how to boil pasta, obviously. But, is there garlic in Alfredo? I mean, sometimes they put it in there. But there's no garlic in this dish to my knowledge. Or maybe there is. Again, here's the thing. The very special friend of the family that I just told you about gave me a printed copy of the recipe but at this moment in time, I can't really make use of it. My mother, on the other hand, she can. And so, on Friday night, she decided, she said that she was going to make this very dish for dinner tonight. One other thing. The type of pasta. This is a penne pasta. Penne. Penne pasta. So, for sure, it's got to be penne pasta. Am I missing anything? Basically, you stir like the penne and the parmesan and the prosciutto and the asparagus tips all together. It's basically all one cohesive dish with some heterogeneity, I suppose. I mean, asparagus tips can be kind of on the hard or texture wise side. Prosciutto. Actually, I don't think the prosciutto is rendered out. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. It is. It is a little bit. I should. Okay, I'll be honest. It's been a long time since I've actually seen this dish be made. I mean, let's be honest. My grandfather didn't really do much when it came to leaving stuff behind regarding that dish. Like, the printed copy that my mother has in her possession is the only. I presume it's probably I'm sure the very special friend I told you about, she probably has a copy of it herself. So I'm banking on there's at least 2 legit printed copies of this recipe. So, having just done, to the very best of my ability, described what this dish entails, the real question is, what do you call it? I mean, this dish, again, has no definitive name. My grandfather really was never into naming stuff like this. Or if he did, he certainly didn't tell anyone. And I've legit tried, because here's the thing. Of the people on my mom's side of the family, my 2 aunts, one of which is my godmother, love this dish the most. And they didn't know what to call this. So, having legitimately exhaust every opportunity that I had to find anyone who could legitimately name this properly, and coming up short each and every time, I do suppose now I have to be the one to name this. So what am I going to do? This is quite the quandary. In my entire life, I've never had this kind of opportunity before. I've never known this kind of responsibility. I've never named something before. This is very momentous in a lot of ways. So what do I do? Well, there's definitely, with the prosciutto and the parmesan, there's obviously some Italian influence, of course. That's a given. So it should be something Italian sounding to some degree, right? This is quite interesting. Here's the thing, I actually do have an idea what I'm going to call this dish. The problem is, one, I really hope, I do my grandfather justice here. Because this was his dish. That being said, his name has to be involved with the naming of this dish. That is a given. I also, again, want to, honor and appreciate the sort of Italian background this dish has with the ingredients used. For sure. Basically, if I'm going to name this, I really want to give this a respectable name, a good name. You know what I mean? So, after giving it some thought, you know what? Funny story. We call my grandfather Bobo. My father would actually call him Ace because he was a great card player. But his actual name was Richard. I think I know what I'm going to call this now. So, by, I suppose, the power vested in me. Wow, this is exciting. I've never had this before. By the power vested in me, I hereby dub this mom food Penne Ricardo. Sounds simple, to the point, very Italian sounding. I think it works. And don't worry, I'll be sure to give you guys better photos of it on social media a little bit later. So I hope y'all liked this video, and if you did, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on social media. As always, I am very humble to make this video for all you guys who watch it. Enjoy your day, and hopefully you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Sunday. Oh, did I do Happy Sunday? Oh, Happy Sunday, everyone. Actually, that also reminds me, welcome back, John Bones Jones. Yeah, I didn't watch the fight because I can't afford pay-per-view, but, I mean, listen, I mentioned this in my live vlogs last night. John Jones, along with his brothers Chandler Jones and Arthur Jones, were the bane of the existence of anyone in Section 4 if you played football or wrestled, which is what I did. Those three siblings were the bane of our existence. Just ask anyone. This is true. Anyway, as always, I'm very humble to make this video for all of you guys watching. Enjoy, family. Hopefully you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Sunday. And remember, if any of you guys want to talk, the channel is going to be here to lend you all the way back. Take care and make good choices. 607 all day, baby. Penne Ricardo. I'm liking the sound of that more and more.